Mark? Oh, yeah, great. Thank you. Thanks everyone. It's great to see so many people here today with a focus around Startwell, which is really exciting. So I have a presentation to share with you, which has, I think, come out as part of the pack for today. And then I'm really keen to get into a discussion and to get people's thoughts and input around next steps and how we develop this. So I'll bring my screen up. Okie dokie. So Startwell. So the Startwell priority that's been set by the integrated care system is to improve the outcomes and reduce inequalities in health, social, emotional and physical development of children in the early years, as in 0 to 5-year-olds, and measured via the school readiness indicator. I'll talk a little bit more about that as we move on. So within Joined Up Care Derbyshire's statement of Startwell, it's the outcome is really clearly defined in terms of the statement here. So women have a healthy pregnancy, children are born safe and well into a nurturing, secure relationship with caregivers, with good nutrition, access to healthcare, social care and education, and children thrive and develop positive and healthy relationships.
Hi, Nikki, would you be able to put in presenter mode just to make it a bit larger?
Yeah.
Wonderful,
No,
thank you.
that's fine. How's that?
Wonderful.
Excellent, thank you. So on reflecting on today, I started to think about so what is it? Why are we here? What is it that we need this session to help us with? So what's really important to us is that we want to make sure we're tackling the right things that's really going to make a difference for children and their families in Derby and Derbyshire. We know we need to do more and to make sure that children do have the best start in life. And within the meetings and the boards that we have as a system, we have a children and young people's delivery board. And as part of that, we've made this commitment for Startwell. So in terms of school readiness, so what is it? So it's a national measure in children through population profiling, and it measures how prepared a child is to succeed in school cognitively, socially and emotionally. So as I said, it's a national measure. You can find the information on the internet, and how well are we in Derby and Derbyshire doing with regards to school readiness? So the data that you can see here shows that we actually are performing worse than England on average. The data's quite far behind because it's national data, but you can see that in England 65% of children attain a good level of development when assessed at age 5, and in Derby that's 62.9%, and in Derbyshire it's 64.4%. I probably should talk a little bit about the split between Derby and Derbyshire. So Derby refers to Derby City Local Authority, and Derbyshire refers to Derbyshire County Council, which wraps around Derby City. So in terms of why is it important? So school readiness as measured at the end of reception at age 5, we know from evidence nationally has a strong impact on future education, entertainment and attainment, and life chances. So children who don't achieve a good level of development struggle with social skills, reading, maths, physical skills, and we know from evidence that impacts on outcomes in childhood and later life, as here education outcomes, crime, health and death, so when they die. I think what's really important to pick up at this point is that this is a long-term aim. It's not something that we can quickly influence and quickly change. So it's really important that we start making the right steps now for the future. I've just added a couple of comments on the side there around the evidence base being really strong, and that it's really cost effective in terms of an investment in children, means that we don't have to invest as much in future years, and there's a couple of examples there of that evidence. So when we think about what makes the difference, so what makes the difference to these children and how ready they are for school, there's a whole range of factors that influence that. There's those that are related to the family and their family situation. There's those that relate to the child themselves, how healthy they are, and also services that are available to support and help them and their families. So there's quite a lot of data on this slide. So sitting underneath the school readiness indicator, there's a whole raft of other indicators that all feed up into that. So you can see on this slide, I'll come back to it later, that in some areas we're not doing so well compared to the rest of England. So we're red. In some areas we're not quite as good, but we're not far off the rest of England, which is in amber. And then the green ones are where we are the same as the rest of England, or we're doing better. So I guess the key things at this point across Derby and Derbyshire, the two that stand out as red are the indicator around breastfeeding prevalence indicator on there 3.2, and then indicator 3.6 around special educational needs identified primary school children. So when reflecting on school readiness, I think from that previous graphic, it's really data, it's really difficult for us to say, so what can we do? Some of it, I think some of it's obvious, immunisation rates, we need to be immunising more children. The indicators around homelessness, it can be difficult to think, well, how can we influence that? How can we as a system offer that support? So I think one of the ways that helps me with that is to think about how we know we're doing well with it and how we know we're making progress. So some of that will be through us measuring the change that's within our system, how well we work together as a whole system, how well we keep our staff, the governance that we have, the way we make decisions and how we control those decisions. We would also expect to have some better processes. Access and uptake is obviously a key challenge for us in the here and now, but in the future that will really help as well. Feedback from parents, carers and families is obviously really important in measuring how well we're doing. The improved outcomes, so the school readiness indicator itself will tell us that we're doing well, and all the indicators underneath. And equality across groups. So we know that there are some groups within our population that inequality exists. So children who are looked after, there's some speech and language communication needs, SEND, the LGBTQ+ group, and ethnicity are all known groups where inequality currently exists. So that kind of brings me to the end of the presentation, really. I wanted to really focus on getting your input and your views, and what are the areas that you think that we really need to focus on and tackle, taking us forward. So this slide can help with that thinking. I think there's also your own thoughts, your own experiences, I think would be really valuable to us as well. So I'll bring the presentation down if that's okay, and open it up to everyone if that's all right. Let me try and do that. Thanks, Beth.
Okay, thank you very much, Nikki. Has anyone got any questions around the presentation itself, or would like to ask any other questions to Nikki around the key area focus?
I was going to say I've stunned everyone into silence, but someone's put their hand up.
Alan, would you like to come in, please?
Yes, thank you. You showed a slide. Now I'm just going to make sure I get the right slide here. So I'm just going to have a look again on percentage of children with a good level of development. And one of the things I noticed that for the Derby area, there was among the unclassified group, it was down at 42%, a much lower percentage than most other groups. What do you know about the population Derby? What goes into that unclassified group?
I couldn't tell you, to be honest. I have to have a look into it and come back to you if that's okay. Can we post responses on the site, can't we, Beth? Yeah.
And I'm just really asking, thinking, is there some targeted work with a particular part of the population in Derby that we might need to have a look at in order to address that particularly low percentage?
Yeah, I certainly think there is. So when we look at areas of deprivation across Derby and Derbyshire, and if you map on top some of the health outcomes for those areas, there's a match. So we know that there are certain areas where we really need to target that support and help. Yeah.
Thank you, Nicola.
Thank you, Alan. Leslie, to bring you in.
Thank you. Thanks for the presentation, Nicola. I think you've said all the things we would want to hear. That is the way to start our early life. Can I just ask, in terms of developing this out, how do you propose to use place as somewhere that can support the achievement of these goals?
Yeah, so I think this links really nicely into Alan's point as well, doesn't it, around us needing to target specific areas across the whole of Derby and Derbyshire to address some of the inequalities. I think we absolutely have to use place and the expertise and that's within place around their population and around their the services that are there for them, and how we develop that and tailor it specifically to place. So yeah, absolutely.
Would you just be able, sorry, Leslie, would you be able to just give a bit of an overview of what place is, just for anybody who might be a bit unfamiliar with it?
Oh, sorry, you asking me, Beth, or Leslie?
You, if you could, Nikki, that'd be all right.
No, that's fine. So place to me, it's a number of different things. So within the Derby and Derbyshire system, you can define place is firstly defined as the different local authorities, so Derby City and Derbyshire County, but within that you also have a whole series of networks in different places. So I think primary care networks are specific to specific areas within Derby and Derbyshire. So what I think Leslie's saying is that in delivering what we need to deliver in order to improve school readiness of children, how are we going to involve different areas separately and differently in order to maximize the impact and have the right impact for the right places, because not all places and not all populations are the same. I hope that's what you thought, Leslie.
Yeah, Leslie, did you want to respond to that? Obviously, you've raised your hand again.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, it does. I'm also a bit concerned that we always go for the areas of inequality, and if we're not careful, we're going to create inequalities by not making sure that those that are equal at the moment continue that way. And I think we're on a cusp, really, with quite a few areas where things could go one way or the other. And I think there is a lot that place can do but I'm not sure that it's to be dictated from on high rather than determined at place as to what is needed, and then fed back up as to what we're going to do or what we need you to enable us to do.
Yeah, I agree, Leslie. I think you're absolutely right. That this is the key about the expertise of the local area, isn't it? That's really crucial in supporting how we deliver and what we need to deliver for each area. Yeah.
Thank you, Leslie. Peter.
Yes. Can you say something more about preschool intervention and support? You talked about readiness for school and its importance for whole life chances, attainment and so forth. It's been shown for years that the more you can give help to children and families, the better able they are to really attain those skills necessary for attaining more in throughout their whole life, and that includes awareness of health issues and personal reliance and so forth. So are you able to say more about how health is linking with education and other services to try and give more support as the greatest support we can?
Yeah, so yeah, it's a really interesting point, isn't it? So I think, when I think about preschool, you almost start before a child's born in terms of the support for the family, with maternity and everything else, and then as you come through, we know we have touch points with families prior to a child starting school. So there's the health checks that happen with children before school, and the health visiting services that we have locally, and then, as you said, as children start to come into school, there's the support that's offered there, and how we come together as a whole system in order to support the needs of children there. Yeah, I think that there's definitely the recognition, isn't there, that the first touch point of a child is probably the most important, and that's the point where early help and support is really key, as much about preventing future health needs as it is about supporting those that are already there. So I was just trying to think of an example, and I had one and it's gone out of my head now. I guess, one example is a pilot that we're currently running around school children with a sustained absence from school because of their emotional health. And what we're piloting from the NHS is some psychology support into schools, working directly with the child, the family and the school, in order to try and support those children back into education. So that's one example. I hope that helps.
Thanks for that, Nikki. I'll just come to Mark. Is there any questions in the chat that we need to address? I've seen there's lots of comments in there, and please, everybody, put your comments in there. It will all be fed in to the development as well.
I've not seen any questions, just lots of comments. I'm just going through again now.
Okay, that's grand then. Okay, we'll move on to Hannah.
Hi, Nikki. Sorry, you might have already answered this because I missed the first few slides because I went to the wrong room, unfortunately. I just wondered how the current data compares with previous years is kind of my first question, but also what sort of prompted that question really as an aside is, anecdotally, I'm aware that I've previously had conversations with midwives who'd noticed that baby head circumferences they were reporting was smaller, sort of towards the end of COVID in particular. And I'm just mindful, therefore, of future impact of that. And I just wondered whether you're aware of any research around that or data around that, because I mean, that was purely me speaking sort of in offhand to, you know, 2 or 3 midwives who were observing it separately to each other and sort of just feeding that back really. And when they were wondering about how that those children's future developments would play out.
Yeah, so thanks, Hannah. So the first question I think was around what prompted school readiness as the indicator. So I think what we were really keen to do was to try and look at something that was holistic. You know, start well's the focus. It's about children, it's about the earliest opportunity, and it's about support at that point. So I think it was just felt that was a really good broad indicator. The data's all there, it's nationally available, so a lot of the work had already been done for us nationally in terms of what's the thing that we're going to count and how we're going to do it. And we just felt it was a really good broad indicator of for us to work through, and it was absolutely aligned to us looking at how we influence the support for the whole population and how we transform the care and support into the future as well. The second bit around the impact of COVID, I'm not aware of that specific piece of research that you've talked about, but I have seen quite a lot of research around the impact of COVID to children. NHS England have published quite a lot of information, and we've received some data regionally. It has had a massive impact, and we're still seeing it now, particularly around children's mental health. And yeah, so I think it's difficult to say, isn't it? I think we just need to keep our eyes open on that impact, and we need to consider it, and we need to respond to the needs that present as a result. I hope does that cover all of it, Hannah? I'm not sure if there was another point in there as well.
Yeah, my first point really was around comparing previous year's data. So obviously you've got data currently, but I just wondered how it's changed. You know, we were better, we were worse than we were 2 years ago. You know, whatever.
To be honest, I don't think it's changed that much. It's really hard because, as you said, COVID changes everything, but the school readiness data that we're looking at is pre-COVID, and prior to that it's pretty stable. But the next iteration will be a really interesting one, I think, in the data.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, just from speaking to teachers, I know, again, anecdotally, you know, teachers all talk quite openly about their perception that children are less ready now than they were pre-COVID. So yeah, I guess that'll be in next year's stats.
Yeah, thank you.
Nikki, we do have a question from Carol Stone, but it looks to be incomplete. So if Carol Stone is able to turn on a microphone and ask a question, it starts off, do children whose mums don't work and the children don't go to your nursery or preschool obtain the advantages that? And then the rest of the question isn't there. So Carol, are you able to speak?
Yes, I'm able to speak. And I'm just wondering about the children who go to preschool, and that normally the mums and dads work, but what about the children who stay at home and don't get the social skills and the mixing skills that those that go to preschool and to the nursery, etc., do? Is there anything that you know, we do for those? Are the free play groups? I mean, the cost of nurseries, etc., could be quite expensive, and sometimes people can't afford them. So, do we have any free places or?
Yeah, so I must admit this isn't my area of expertise, but I know that the local authority do have a number of services and groups and support for families. We have the health visiting service do their checks with children, And I think that's the point where they start to see any indicators of development at that point as well. And then I guess the key question is, and then we have to think about what do we do about it if there is indicators at that point, and that can prompt further support to be triggered. So the bit about the difference between children's whose mums do work and don't work, I couldn't say. I bet there is quite a lot of research and evidence and information about it, but I'm not aware of it.
Yeah, I was thinking that children, especially if you've just got the one, they don't really get the social skills and the playing skills and things like that being on their own. So I mean, really, it is beneficial if they do go to nursery. But it's quite expensive to, for the nursery places, isn't it? And I know there are grants for that, but I think there's sometimes quite a big difference between the, what you need and what you get, sort of thing. So
yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks, Carol.
Thanks, Carol. Let's go to Stephen Brumley.
Hi, Nicola.
Hello.
I'm a member of North East Derbyshire and Bolsover Place Alliance Group, and you mentioned Place earlier, and I just wanted to revisit it. I think it's an ideal opportunity there to be involved in children's development and so on. The Place Alliance Group that I'm a member of, I don't think we have any representatives from any aspect of children's. It's all adult focused. We don't have anything from Derbyshire County, no one from Derbyshire County Council's Children's Services, nothing from the schools within the Place catchment, nothing from education, nothing from the health service side either, or children's care services. So maybe it would be a good thing for your development process to go to the Place board and try and get children's services integrated into the Place alliances. Now, I know I'm only one part, there are 8 Place alliances, so ours might be unique in that. It might be that others have got children's involved. Then again, it might be across Derby and Derbyshire. So I just thought I'd raise that point with you, because I do think it's an ideal opportunity to develop children's services there.
I absolutely agree, Stephen. I think we need to change that. I think, yeah, I would certainly welcome those links, and I think it, as we've talked about before, it'd be really key in the development of how we take this forward, wouldn't it? I don't think you're the only one. I suspect that there aren't that many links with the other Place alliance groups either, which is a shame, but that's something we need to tackle.
Okay, thanks, Nikki. John, we'll just come to you in a second. I'm just going to jump over to Mark for an update on the chat.
Yes, bear with. I just have to find it again. Here we go. There's a question from Peter Steedman, and he just asked, when will the next revision of data be available?
Oh, I don't know, Peter. But I can certainly pick that up and I'll post it onto the site, Beth, if that's okay as a question.
That's it from me, Beth.
Yeah,
Thank
we'll
you.
update on the platform. Shall we go over to John?
Yeah, you mentioned, Nikki, the problem area of special needs. The fact that was one of the key problems. This would seem to be something actually that can be hit hard in various places. Some of the things that we're looking at, use the word holistic, and they tend often to be something which is rather difficult to pin where the end threads come in terms of getting something going. But with special needs, we've got youngsters there, obviously before school, yes, but also in school. And I just wonder what you see things that you think you might be able to achieve, because over many years, the special needs element in schools has been a poor relation. There's a lot said about it, but when it comes down to it, we are talking about having teachers, enough teachers, trained teachers for this area, so that we can get small working groups. And it's been shown time and again that class size does matter. But I mean, there's also the complication that schools these days are divided between trust schools, religious schools, county schools. So just how do you see you can get into this issue?
Yeah, so within the system, we have both local areas have the special educational needs boards. I think we can influence, and I think we do influence, and I think there's more that we certainly need to do around that. So and we need to support. So many schools probably don't know how to support some of these children, or they need help in order to do it. So I think there's something about how we in reach and how we support schools. I was going to say something else, it's completely gone out of my head. I think, yeah, the maintained and the academy schools is a tricky one, isn't it? And I think that's where it's about what we can offer and what we can influence and how we can support. And I think we know we've got weaknesses in that, and it's things that we need to tackle. We need to be sure that schools know where they can get that support and how they can signpost children and families on to other support within the system. A lot of it's around communication across us all as well. So yeah, I think there's a lot to do. Someone said to me the other day that we need to remember that schools are a community hub, and and I thought about it and I went, oh yeah, I've never really thought about that before, but it absolutely is the heart of a community. And how effective are we as the NHS in supporting that community? So yeah, definitely.
Thank you.
Thank you. Leslie, coming next.
Thank you. So I've got loads of questions and you've been really helpful. Thank you. While we're talking, I'm thinking about with the Place Alliance that I work with, and how I think we're missing out on this as well. And I think Place itself is still in a stage of discovering what it's about and how it might work, as well as the Integrated Care Board itself thinking about that. But I just wonder how much involvement public health has got in the development of this vision, and how you might see them helping Place to develop this further.
Yeah. So I know there's some public health colleagues in the room. They're absolutely linked into this. I think it was them that suggested that we looked at this as a guide. So they've been gently steering us towards the wider population agenda for a while. Yeah, so I mentioned the Children's Delivery Board earlier. So public health from both local authorities sit on that board, and they're really strong voices. So they're very much involved in it and really supporting us in this thinking, which for me, I've been in the NHS, it's very different to start thinking about the future. It's a natural reaction for us to respond to what's in front of us and try and fix the problems that are in the here and now, isn't it? And actually, no, we need to step back and go back to the start and think about how we influence the change due to the future. So I would say that they've been great. They're gently guiding us through that and making sure that we're lined up. In terms of how I think they would support the Place Alliance, I certainly think through the links that we've got, that they can support it in the same way. So very much about guiding and steering and influencing the thinking and making sure that we are focused on that long-term goal. So yeah, I hope that helpful.
It does, thanks. I'm really pleased that you're looking long term, because that will help actually staying well and aging well and dying well, to also look at long term goals rather than look at the immediate, how can we find a solution for this problem? Because most of the time that's not a feasible option.
Yeah.
But I do think.
Sorry.
No, sorry, I was going to say.
Yeah, sorry, I was going to say, I think we're very much driven by what we see in front of us, aren't we? So we see a child in crisis, and we respond to that, and we put things in place on how we're going to respond to that crisis and how best we can do that, and that's a natural reaction. The child's in front of you, you're going to respond to what you're seeing. And you know, some of the NHS England performance targets are very much driven in that sense. Why are you not doing what you need to be doing now, and you need to tell us what you're going to do about it? And some of it's about the problems that we've got in this as a local area now that we can't afford not to be looking at. So I think that still needs to happen. We still need to respond to the here and now. We can't get away from it. But what's really important is that what we're trying to do is the step back that says, well, hang on a minute, I know this isn't the thing of the moment, but this is what we really need to focus on if we're going to change the future. So yeah, I see what you're saying, Leslie.
I'll shut up now, sorry.
No, it's fine.
Right. Have we got any more? Have we got any more questions in the chat there, Mark?
Yes, we have. We have a couple. So we'll start with Helen Kane has asked, is the school readiness check the same for all children, or is it adapted to recognise that a good level of development, in quotation marks, may be different for children with special educational needs?
That's a very detailed question, and I'm really sorry, but I can't answer it. I'm sure public health probably could. Can I find out and pop that into the questions afterwards? Thank you. Sorry, Beth.
The next question is from Peter Steedman. Specifically, how do we ensure that improvements in the representation in Place Alliance groups is achieved?
Yeah, I mean that how do we? So I think it's through trying to reach out, isn't it? I think into and touch people. I'm almost tempted to throw that question to Leslie, but that'd be a bit rude of me, wouldn't it? I think it's just making sure that we, it's about how we communicate, isn't it? And making sure that we do touch the right people in the right way. It's a challenge. It's always a challenge, I think. But yeah, I'd welcome any thoughts and ideas on that others have.
Did you want to come back on that, Peter? Or? Can't hear.
Yeah, thanks, Beth.
Did you have thoughts about it, Peter?
I don't specifically, because it's an area that I am woefully inadequate in terms of understand. Well, I understand the basics of place and what it is and what it does, but I don't understand the detail. And just as an aside, as an individual, I'd love to get involved in place, you know, and because I think that's really where the hard work needs to be done. But sorry, to try and answer your question, I suppose my question in the chat was voicing a little bit of frustration, really, in that we're all saying, yes, we need to do it, and it's got to be done. But, you know, what are we actually going to do to make sure it happens, really? And I take your point, we need to talk to the various organisations that we feel need to play a part in place, but maybe we need to be a little bit more robust in those conversations, because if we don't get the right representation at a local level, then we're not going to get off first base, are we, really? We need to influence at a local level those organisations that need to be influenced. So I suppose I'm just trying to encourage a bit more focus and a bit more specific actions to be put in place to do what you've just said. if we need to engage with organisations, well, how are we going to do it? Who's going to do it? Whose responsibility is it?
Yeah, I agree. So, yeah, I mean, 90% of the work is about working out what it is we're going to do and what's going to make the difference, isn't it? And then actually delivering the change that's needed is almost the easy part at the end, I guess. So yeah, I
Hello,
appreciate what you're saying.
hello.
I've just seen two more questions in the chat as well. I'm not sure if you had any more, or are those the live ones, Mark?
Yes, so we have two more here. One might just be a small point for you, Nikki. It says when we're discussing Pete Steedman's question, Kerry Hodges said maybe an agenda item at the next children's delivery board. So there's a question mark on it, but it's more of a suggestion, perhaps.
Yeah, I think it is. Kerry comes along to that board sometimes. I think that's a really good idea, Kerry.
Okay, and then the next question was from Carol Ford, who asks, is the Start Well priority discussed at Place Board?
It might not be currently, but I'm certain it will be going forwards, because I know that we're linked through the integrated care strategy. So it's certainly on their agenda. Yes. I think again that's the links that we need to make sure we strengthen.
Okay.
Yeah.
And come to Stephen.
Me again. Just going on again about place. It seems to be becoming the centre of the discussion. Place as a whole is very mature. I mean, it's been going on since before COVID. Obviously, it's undergone changes since the ICB took over. But we started out with the 8 place alliances, and now we've got the 2 main places, Derby City and Derbyshire County. But of course, the place alliances are still existing under those. So there is a very mature set of links within the places that are there. But as I said earlier, they are primarily aimed within more the adult sector, and also how the various councils work together. Public health is included. It's those kind of organisations that are involved, and voluntary sector organisations. But just from my personal experience, as I said earlier, I do think that there's a lack of involvement with regard to the children's development side and children's education through to sort of leaving education. So I do think it's really important to get it involved, get those areas into the place alliance groups, but quite how you do it, I think you're going to have to go to the place alliance board and sort of take it from there, and then it can maybe disseminate down to the place alliances themselves.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question, Stephen. So how do we kickstart that? So yeah, as you've suggested, so if we start at the place board and take our guidance from there.
Hey, Leslie, do you want to come in?
Thank you. I mean, I'm going to take this back to our place alliance and say, you know, who have we got that we should be bringing in here? I think we have got tenuous links, but they're obviously not strong enough to be able to further this. So I think it's down to place. I don't want to be sitting there waiting for somebody up on high to tell us what to do.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So the other way around. So you come along to the children's board and link in at that, or not you, but the alliances come through and we make the links that way.
Well, I see the thing with places. All right, we've got this strategy coming through. So we look at that and we look at what the representation we have in our place alliance. And we look in our community and think, who have we got here that would help us with this intelligence? We get them to come either on a permanent or an invitational basis to the alliance meetings. And then we go back upstream when we've got things we want to talk about and say, we need you to enable us to do this. This is what we need to do for our area. How are you going to enable us to do it?
Yeah, I think that'd be great.
We've got
We don't got a
Carol.
budget, but never mind.
Carol, you all right? Come in.
Hiya, yeah, just speaking from my involvement with the Erewash Place Alliance, we are starting to see the children's agenda come in a little bit. Place Alliance and the PCN have been making connections with children's services, but it's not very kind of very early years focused, and I'd really be keen to see that early years focus in place. But we do in the county at the moment have the locality children's partnerships for each area, so it might be that some of those discussions are already taking place at a place level, but in different partnerships. And I think there's a task to understand where the conversation already is and how we bring it together without duplicating.
Yeah, I agree, Carol.
We don't have anybody else with their hands up. Michael, we got any more questions in the chat box?
No more questions that I've seen, no.
I was wondering whether, Harriet, whether you'd come in. I've seen a really interesting comment that you've put in the chat box about the important area of focus and the indicators and looking at the insight behind them. I don't want you to expand on that a little bit more.
Yeah, sure, I can do. Can you hear me all right? Sorry, I've had problems with my microphone. So
Yeah, no, I can hear you.
yeah, okay, great. Yeah, to me it just felt those indicators absolutely probably the right ones, but in terms of their numbers, so it only kind of just gives us a figure really. But what's the kind of, what is it that's impacting that figure? What's kind of influencing it? What's kind of restricting it or stopping things, increases there and stuff. And I think that there's probably people's experiences, people that kind of live in our communities, people that use our services, that will be able to give some insight behind that and why things are as they are. And I think there's, throughout our city and our county, there's some really good community groups, and there's people already having those conversations probably, but we just need to kind of join up those links and make sure that that information is being fed through to kind of bring those figures to life, I suppose.
Yeah, there's loads of data that sits under it, Harriet, and I toyed with the idea whether to talk it through, but I really wanted us to get into the discussion. I didn't want us to be just looking at data for an hour, but yeah, I agree. It's the so what, isn't it? So okay, so that's where we are. So what is it that we need to change that will influence it? And based on what others have said, and what does that look like for individual areas? Yeah.
Yeah, a really interesting point, Harriet, as well. I didn't know whether Shelley or Nick wants to come in. You've spoken quite a bit about the VCSE sector role. Maybe we want to discuss that a little bit more.
I've seen Nick's comment that's just popped up in the chat, and yeah, I absolutely agree around that. These are the people who make the connections, aren't they? That we don't. And it's really valuable information. Yeah.
Yeah, I've just got Shelley and Nick who's just popped up on the screen.
Yeah,
now.
I've just seen Nick pop up, so I'll let him talk because he's done some more stuff. But yeah, absolutely, just echoing what's kind of been said in the thread. I think it's really important about utilising the community, so whether that's a voluntary sector or people who are working within the community or live in the community, and actually listening to them, sort of, so not finding out, not communicating with them, not sort of engaging them, but just start off by listening. That would be kind of like one of my top tips, I suppose. But go for it, Nick.
No, not much more to add. I mean, I'm perhaps being slightly purposefully inflammatory in the way I'm putting things, but I think actually, we have to listen to people and what matters to them. And it's data is great, but waiting for the next iteration of data does it really make that much of a difference? And when actually the people on the ground can tell us what they want and what they need, and we can get upstream much quicker with the kind of interventions that are really going to make a difference to people. So yeah, that's and we really must invest in the VCSE sector, and understand what they can tell the system.
Yeah, Nikki, do you want to respond or add anything to that?
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with everything that's been said. Yeah, yeah, we need to get those connections in place, don't we? And we need to start working through what that means. Yeah.
So I'm just aware of the time now. I just want to thank everybody for coming for today, and I think we've just some wonderful conversations, some really good comments to think about. What we're going to be doing following this is that we're going to be pulling off all the comments and the feedback that was said and the responses. Anybody who wants a direct question answering, if you can email us on the engagement address, and then we can respond to you directly, and Mark will pop it in the chat for you. But we're going to put all of this onto the engagement platform, and we'll send out a link after later as well, just to remind everybody where to all these links are that we're talking about, and it will look at what everybody has said, and then that will also be fed to Nikki and the other leads, and then we'll start looking at the development going forward, and we can keep people posted on that platform as well about the next stages, or if there's any engagement going on, how to get involved. So please, keep involved, and if you have any other points in the meantime, please just drop us on that email at any time as well. We're more than grateful. So I'd like to thank everybody for their time, and thank you, Nikki, for your presentation. And I'll see you on the next one. If you're not signed up, if you aren't, then please have a look. We've got quite a few more coming up. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a good afternoon.
Thank you. Thanks
Thank
everyone
you.
for your input.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Beth.
Yeah,
Thanks, Nikki.
thanks, Nikki, Beth. Great conversation. Thank you.
Yeah, good.